Welcome to Hartnell College. Thank you so much for all of the students who took the time to be here today, the faculty, our community partners, all of the agencies and community members who came out. It is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Board President Manuel Osorio.
Thank you and good morning. Good to see all of you here. It's so nice. It's a beautiful day too, isn't it? A little cold. Anyway, I'm here to speak today a little bit about what the Board of Trustees have been up to and what we've been able to accomplish in this last year. My name, as was stated earlier, is Manuel Osorio. I'm the President of the Board of Trustees. We are here today to hear about the latest information on efforts to pass permanent legislation at the federal level intended to provide all dreamers, students and their families, with some relief. But first, I am here to assure you that the board is committed to supporting dreamers, students at this institution, emphatically adhering to our resolution 17-3 adopted at our board on February 7th last year, 2017. This resolution provides for the well-being of undocumented students in the pursuit of their education. Hartnell College supports the California Community College statement values and commitment for undocumented students that protects the rights and in particular the privacy rights of all students enrolled in our programs. Now it's my honor to introduce Dr. Nolan Wellen, our President and Superintendent of the college. Thank you.
Good morning and welcome. Great to see you all here today. It's a very special event. I want to start by thanking a few groups and some individuals and also some few recognitions. I want to give a special thanks to United Farm Workers Foundation and Catholic Charities for their assistance in helping our Dreamer students, particularly with the cost of the renewals. We know that it's expensive, but it's very important, and we really want to thank them for stepping up and helping with that. And of course, Hartnell has been doing some of that as well in terms of providing some scholarships to help students with those costs. Also want to recognize some colleagues and some partners who are here with us today. I'm not going to go down a list of names, but we certainly want to thank them for being here today. And we have some representatives here today from Cabrillo College and also from Cal State University Monterey Bay. So thank you for joining us here today. We also have some representatives here from some of our elected officials. Alex Pitaro from Senator Bill Monning's office, and Jonathan Hernandez from Assemblymember Ana Caballero's office. So thank you for being here with us today. Hartnell College and its Dreamer students continue to be leaders on the issues and challenges facing these students and their families. In April of 2016, Hartnell College opened the first Dreamer Center at a California community college. I'm very proud of that. Mi Casa, and we have a little play on words there. Of course, we all know what casa means in Spanish, but it means more than that here in Hartnell. And CASA actually is an acronym for the Center for Achievement and Student Advancement. And through Mi Casa, we provide support services for the over 800 Dreamer students here at Hartnell. Under the leadership of Director Bronwyn Moreno and Vice President Dr. Romero Alomo, Mi Casa has become a beacon of support, of hope, and inspiration for our students. A graduate of Hartnell's nationally recognized program, a 3-year bachelor's degree program in computer science, Danielle Diaz. I don't know if Daniel's here today. Daniel, great, thank you. catch up with you before I mentioned your name here, but I know you're comfortable with that. So Daniel, along with some of his colleagues, developed the Faces of DACA, which is a website that profiles a number of Dreamer students by putting a story and a face to the issue. For those of you who have not seen it, I encourage you to just do a search on Faces of DACA. You'll find the link. Danielle and many others like him are not hiding in the shadows. They're not worried about their names, their identities, their faces being made public, obviously. They're putting themselves out there on our website. Here I am. They are courageous and they have tremendous grit. Ellos tienen ganas y valor. See? The generosity and graciousness of Congressman Panetta, one of our Dreamer students, Adriana Gonzalez, will be attending President Trump's State of the Union address on January 30th in Washington, D.C. Adriana shared with me that she was unable to join her 8th grade class for the Washington, D.C. trip, of course, because she was undocumented. And DACA didn't exist at that time, and she was not able to travel. So we are so excited for her to make this trip. I'm standing with our Dreamer students, and will continue to stand with them. The Board of Trustees is standing with our students. Hartnell College is standing with these students. And just as importantly, Congressman Jimmy Panetta is standing with our students as well. Please join me in welcoming Congressman Jimmy Panetta.
Thank you very much, President Llewellyn. Thank you very much for that kind introduction. Hartnell College, it's always good to be back here, let me tell you, especially after last weekend. Good to be on the Central Coast. Outstanding to be here at Hartnell College with so many supporters, not only of our community at this college, but so many supporters for our Dreamers. So thank you. Magnolia Zarraga, who you'll be hearing from in a little bit, thank you for being here. And of course, Mikasa and Brownland Morena, thank you for all of your work supporting our students, our Dreamers here at Hartnell. And of course, thanks to all of you. You don't know how many times in the last 4 months that I have bragged about Hartnell College and its Dreamers. The fact that you have given me evidence that I can use in making my argument for Dreamers and a DACA solution as we have worked and tried to negotiate a DACA solution. I get to tell them that you don't just want to stay here, but you want to fulfill the dream of your parents as to why they brought you here. They want you to not just stay here. You don't just want to stay here, but you yearn to contribute to your community, to your country. And that is why I stand here today, because I want you to know that it's not just me, but there are many men and women, many representatives back in Washington, D.C. that are standing with you in order to come up with a DACA solution. Now we know that in September, President Donald Trump announced that he would take the opportunities that you've had, take that away from you by calling for the end to DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. And he challenged Congress. He challenged Congress to come up with long-lasting legislation to replace the DACA program. And he did that by setting a March 5th, 2018 deadline. And you would think that something as important as this, we would have seen a deal by now. You would think that. But since September, and unfortunately as highlighted this past week and weekend, no deal has been reached. And we've heard a lot about potential deals. We've heard a lot of words, some good words, and yes, some bad words. From the President, from Congress members, from Secretaries of Homeland Security. And no, we have not seen any agreement as of yet. And what I have learned in my time and working on this issue is that it is not easy, okay? I admit that to you. Immigration policy is not easy. And I believe that because of the way our country is. It is very diverse. It is very different in all corners of our nation. And that does make policy and politics, when it comes to our immigration, very, very difficult. Look, being from the Central Coast of California, as a grandson of immigrants, we understand how important immigrants, immigration policy, and immigration reform are. We're so lucky to live not just in the Central Coast, we're lucky to live in California, the #1 state for dreamers, close to 240,000 dreamers by far. I think the second state is Illinois, Texas, with 120, and then it drops down to Illinois at 40. It tells you how far, how many dreamers we have compared to the rest of the state. 20,000 dreamers, the rest of the country, 20,000 dreamers in this state. And of course, as you know, the numbers here at Hartnell. The number I like to say often in Washington, D.C., over 800 dreamers here at Hartnell College. And if you were a state, you'd be ranked number 40 in the nation. We get it. We understand how important our dreamers are to our community, to our economy, to our country, and yes, our culture. But I've said this before, and it bears repeating again, that there are congressional districts, there are Congress members who are not as lucky as me. They don't just have hardly any dreamers. They don't have hardly any immigrants. 4/5 of Republican districts have a below average number of immigrants in their district. You heard something that kind of represented that I think it was last week, where the DHS secretary was testifying, and someone asked her, "Have you ever met a dreamer?" And she hadn't. I believe that that lack of exposure limits understanding, and it limits a political will on the part of some people in Washington, D.C. to do the right thing. Now, don't get me wrong, they're not all like that. I can give you an example of my fellow freshman classmate, Republican Brian Fitzpatrick, who I can tell you, he doesn't necessarily have the statistics on how many dreamers are in his district, but I can tell you the reason he's fighting for you as a Republican is because he knows it's the right thing to do. We had an interview yesterday on Univision, and he said that. He's the type of person that's standing with you and fighting for you on the Republican side of the aisle. But there are others. There are others in the majority, I have to say, that have told me, "Look, Jimmy, it's politically safe for me not to touch this issue in my district. I don't have to deal with immigration in my district. It's not a big deal for me in my district." I've had others in the majority tell me, "Look, I will vote for the DREAM Act, but then I have to go back and justify my vote to my constituents. I have to tell them, yeah, I voted for the DREAM Act, but let me tell you how I am also supporting the President of the United States." That's the bind he is in. And then you have Speaker Ryan and Leader McConnell. basically saying the deadline isn't until March. So what is the rush? What is the rush? Well, I can tell you the rush. I can tell you the need for a DACA solution is based on the facts. And that is that every day before March 5th, over 100 dreamers are losing their status. Every day after March 5th, over 1,000 dreamers will lose status. So yes, it is a rush. And yes, something needs to be done, and it needs to be done now. Now last week, the majority put forth a short-term funding package for the federal government. Basically, they put a short-term continuing resolution, and I'm sure you've heard, basically a short-term package, basically continuing the type of spending that we've had, but continuing it out for the next certain amount of time. And they put forward the fourth one since I've been in Congress. The fourth one. And part of this package, in this package, it did not include any sort of funding for disaster relief. It didn't include any funding for community health clinics, and it didn't include any funding for battling or opioid addiction. And it did not include any sort of solution for DACA. And that is why the Senate Democrats and even a few Senate Republicans said enough is enough. And the result was a brief shutdown of the federal government that we all heard about last weekend. And so after 3 frantic days over this past weekend, comprehending the impact of the shutdown, the Senate and the Congress then came together and passed a 5th short-term funding measure for our federal government until February 8th. I voted against it. I voted against it. I wanted the government open, but I voted against it because I'm against funding our government on a short month-to-month basis. And it is time that we come up with a bipartisan agreement for long-term funding packages. And we still need funding for our community health centers, disaster aid, not just for here in California, but throughout our nation and Puerto Rico. And yes, we need to deal with our opioid epidemic. And I wanted a DACA solution attached to that funding bill. But instead, we got a commitment. The Dreamers got a commitment. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell assured the senators that they would negotiate a solution on DACA. And if those negotiations do not come up with some sort of agreement by February 8th, then he will actually have debate on bills on the floor of the Senate. I'm happy for that. But I have to say, I'm also ashamed that it takes this type of government shutdown, this type of incident to force regular order in the United States Senate. And so what we're left with is basically 2.5 weeks. Within that time, we have 6 legislative days to come up with a bipartisan deal that raises our budget caps and deals with a long-term funding for fiscal year that started way back in October. And yes, 6 legislative days to come up with a deal on DACA, a solution on DACA. And if you look at all the facets of this type of deal, it's going to take, I would think, it's going to take longer than that. Because you have to come up with a solution for DACA. You then start talking about border security. We're now talking about the end of the diversity visa lottery, and we're talking about family reunification as well. And certain pieces of legislation have then come into the mix. Chairman Goodlatte of the Judiciary Committee has put forward a very conservative bill in the House, which does not provide a pathway to citizenship for our DACA, for our dreamers. Instead, it reduces legal immigration by 25%. It funds the construction of the wall. It adds 10,000 border security agents and ICE agents, and it mandates E-Verify. Yet on the other side of it, you have the USA Act, which has the DREAM Act, and it does not have any funding for a wall. As a Democrat, that'd be nice. But basically, I want to show you that what we're dealing with is a piece of legislation that's over here to the right, and a piece of legislation that's over here to the left. And then you also have the Graham-Durbin bill in the Senate, which after the Tuesday meeting that they had at the White House, which I watched all of it, maybe some of you watched it, that 55-minute meeting there at the White House, where President Trump put forward his 4 principles. 1, we deal with the DACA solution. 2, we deal with border security, including some funding for parts of a wall. 3, we deal with the diversity lottery visa. 4, we deal with family reunification. So what did Senators Graham and Durbin do? They came up with a compromise. The Gang of 6 that dealt with all of that. And they tried to put that forward. And then you had even Chuck Schumer, Senator Schumer, going down to the White House saying, we'll build your wall. We'll give you not just 18, but I think it was $22 billion to build your wall. But nothing happened. Nothing happened. And so this is what we're going to have to talk about. It really is a laundry list for a Congress that does have a lengthy track history of not meeting deadlines. On top of that, we don't have a promise by the House, we don't have a promise by the White House as to what they will do with any sort of legislation that comes out of the U.S. Senate. But it doesn't mean we are going to stop fighting. People right now are negotiating those things that I just talked about in the Senate, and we will continue to work on our bills in the House of Representatives. Because we would hope that President Trump does live up to what he said on national TV in front of all of us, that if you come up with a bipartisan compromise and put it on my desk, I will take the heat and I will sign it. And let's hold him to that. And so that's why I am working with my Republican colleagues, Democrat and Republican colleagues, on the Promise Office Caucus, and we are coming up with a proposal that supports the Senate's proposal as well. We're working with senators to deal with that, to show that they have support in the House, bipartisan support in the House for that. And you have other members putting forward other legislation as well. There are a number of members, I can tell you right now, on both sides of the aisle that are fighting for you. And I am here to tell you that, but I am also here to tell you that you must continue living your lives. You must continue to contribute to this community, continue to contribute to this school, and you will continue to contribute to your lives and your family. And fortunately, basically, the Federal Court of Appeals in San Francisco helped us with that. Because they said to DACA recipients whose protections expired before or since September 5th that you should apply for that renewal. They gave us that opportunity. And that federal court order that's going to protect you from deportation is going to allow you to retain your work permits. And the DHS has said it's not going to terminate them. So I would advise you that if you qualify for those, to reapply for those. If you need assistance in knowing where to go for those, please contact our office. We will let you know. And I can tell you, like I said, and like I've always said, ever since I held that town hall in there about immigration last year, the way we win, the way you win is when you continue to excel. You continue to contribute to our community, you continue to be successful, and you continue to contribute to our country, to your country. And please, please, I know it seems like one hell of a storm that's going on back in Washington, D.C. But please continue to excel and do it with the confidence, knowing that there are representatives on both sides of the aisle that are not just standing with you, but they are fighting so that you can not just live in America, but that you can fulfill the American dream. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that important update and those inspiring words. Congressman Panetta will be available after the formal remarks for question and answer. So if you have any questions, you may want to jot those down. It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, our great partner and local immigration attorney, Ms. Magnolia Zarraga.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Hartnell, for having me here, and Mr. Panetta, thank you for your words. I want to give everybody a very brief overview of the renewal process. So as the Congressman said, people who have previously had DACA can now renew. It doesn't matter when your DACA expires, or if it has already expired, or if it was terminated for some reason, you have the option because of this order now to renew. There's a little bit of a difference if it expired before September of 2016. Then you have to renew as if it was an initial filing. And what that means is that you have to submit all new evidence as when you first applied. Evidence of your entry under 16, evidence of your continuous presence, and evidence that you were here on the day of the announcement. Everybody else will just renew as a regular renewal. The other things that I wanted to say that are different from when people could renew previous to the termination was that there was no deadline for renewals. So prior to this termination by the administration, if your DACA expired in 6 months or 8 months, it was your choice to renew whenever you wanted to. You did not have to renew within a certain time period. There was a period in time where they gave us a deadline of 120 to 150 days to renew, but then they backtracked and said, okay, if you want to renew before that period, go ahead, we'll let you renew. So I think it's important to note that because this is a temporary injunction and we don't know how long we will continue to be able to renew, we are encouraging everybody, regardless of expiration date, to renew. We haven't had any kicked back that have been renewed within this year. So I've had cases where we filed for the renewal when the date of expiration was, for example, January of next year, and it hasn't been kicked back. But the form instructions do say that if you file outside of that 150 days, that they may reject it. And that would be worst case scenario, is that they reject your entire application and return your fees and your forms to you. So in light of the fact that this is temporary and we don't know how long it will last, I would encourage all of you to renew, regardless of the expiration date. The other change is that there are no more requests for advanced parole. That was the application to request permission to travel and return to the U.S. We had to show that we fell within 3 criteria. USCIS has stated very clearly that they will no longer accept or process requests for advanced parole. So the judge's order did not require them to stop accepting these requests, but they have in fact come out and said that they will no longer process them. So I think that's important for you to know as well. The best advice that I can offer you, based on what I've seen already, is that you have to make sure that you go to somebody and that they review your forms. You have the resources here at Hartnell, you have MICASA, you have the UFW, you have a lot of nonprofits that are willing to review your applications before you send them off, because we did see a lot during the termination period that were rejected because the filing fee wasn't complete or the forms were not the appropriate forms. So make sure that you look at the version, the edition dates on your forms. They have to be the most recent. If you go directly to the USCIS website, you can download the most recent forms. There's 3 applications, the I-821D, the I-765, and the I-765 worksheet. All 3 have to be filed at the same time. The filing fee is $495, and you can request financial assistance either through a nonprofit, through the college, or through other nonprofits that are offering financial assistance regardless of income. They will pay for your filing fee. So there are resources out there for you if you need it. The other, I guess the last tip of advice would be to spread the word. There's a lot of confusion. I myself have struggled to stay on top of everything. You know, every night it seems that things are changing very quickly, so you have to stay on top of it, and if you know of something, then spread that message to your loved ones, to your friends, so that they're on top of it as well. There is a lot of misinformation out there too, even on the USCIS website, so I think it's very, very important to confer with somebody like a nonprofit, UFW, or MICASA, or an attorney before you take action that may or may not be consistent with the law as it stands now. But as it stands now, you can renew if you previously had DACA. Okay, and I guess this will then give us time to answer a few questions. If anybody has any questions?
It's easy.
Yeah.
Gotta be something.
We would more strictly target California and other surrounding states with threaten them with subpoenas if they fail to show local law enforcement. They're working with the federal government in regards to sharing info in response to statements by Judge Sessions.
I think it gets back to what I said earlier, that we're very lucky to live in California. We're very lucky to live in a town like Salinas. We're very lucky to live in Monterey County and on the Central Coast, because we understand that it's also not just about what we call ourselves, it's about how we act. And, the police agencies here, the government agencies here at the local level, they have a job to do. And, part of that job is not going to be disrupting families. Sure, our police are going to arrest people that commit crimes, but it's up to the federal government to deal with immigration issues. And I think our police agencies understand that, and they're going to keep it separate, and they will continue to do our job. Like I said, we are very fortunate to live amongst people and in a community that understands how important immigration is, and they will continue to basically do their jobs despite the rhetoric coming from the administration.
Thank you.
Other questions from the audience? It's a great opportunity here. Our lawmaker and an immigration expert.
Do you know of any organizations that are helping, like specific organizations that are helping with the funding for the DACA renewals?
Yes, I have a website if you guys want to take your pens out. It's Mission Asset Fund, and their website is LC4DACA, the number 4, DACA.org. LC4DACA.org. You can put that on your phones or online, and that'll pull up their website. Again, they are assisting with the filing fee. There is no income requirements in order to qualify. They have had an extraordinary amount of people apply for this assistance. So they are putting people on a wait list depending on the date of expiration. But if your DACA expires about March or April, we've seen that they respond very quickly. You'll get an email from them within 24 hours, and within 48 hours after that, you'll have confirmation if you've been approved or not, and then the check will be mailed to you. And this check, if you do receive it, will be mailed with the application. It's your filing fee, so don't do anything to the check. Leave it as is. Make sure it has your name accurately spelled, and then you submit it with your application to USCIS.
I'm not sure if or how true this may be, or if it's even relevant in this area, but I heard there will be sweeps or raids going on up in Northern California. I don't know how true that is or how that information got out. I'm asking from San Jose, and so that's kind of a big concern in my community.
So there have been rumors that there are going to be sweeps in Northern California, across the nation, and specifically targeting California because of our sanctuary status. So I think it's important to remember that despite being undocumented or not having documented status in this country, we have rights. So we have to remember we have rights, and the laws of the state of California protect us in our jobs. Our employers cannot permit ICE to access us or to access our information. The Attorney General has stated numerous times that he will prosecute employers who violate California law by allowing ICE into the premises without a warrant. So we have to remember that we have those rights. We also have to remember that if raids happen, we've known that they've happened in the past, and if they were to happen again, we have to remember our rights not to sign anything, not to say anything, and to seek help from the agencies that are here, the nonprofits. Our foreign consulates are also a big help. There's a lot that can be done for somebody even once they go into detention by ICE. So unless you've previously been removed, you have a right to have a hearing in front of an immigration judge, and that takes a long time. Nobody can deport you unless you've already been removed. We can't deport you from one day to the next unless you sign that you're willing to forego those rights and be voluntary. So we want people to be aware of that. The threat is there, but we also have rights to try to fight from being removed from this country.
That rumor stemmed from a San Francisco Chronicle article that I think came out about 2 weeks ago. Once we were notified of that article, we immediately contacted DHS to get some light on the situation. They have a protocol of not telling anything about any sort of planned raids for security purposes and so forth. But I also reached out to a number of Northern California congressional delegation when we talked about a plan of action if that was to happen, and how we will continue to reach out to DHS to do that, to make sure that there is, basically we know exactly where they're going, who they're targeting, what they're doing. But that will not come until if they actually perform such a raid. But what Ms. Zarraga was talking about in regards to the law about employers, from what my understanding is, it's a state law that was created last year in response to the Trump administration that basically prevents ICE agents from going into the back areas of a business, the non-public areas, unless they have a warrant. So your employers basically cannot allow ICE agents into the back areas, the private areas, unless there is a warrant. And so it's good to know these rights. It's good for your employers to know these rights, your family and friends, and it's good for you to know your rights and stay vigilant when it comes to these types of rumors and these types of ICE enforcement actions as well.
Not a question, but we have some additional information I just want to share with everybody. Also, I wanted to tag on to what was just said. That applies to Hartnell College as well, that absent a warrant of some kind, we will not be releasing any information to anybody about our students. We're going to protect their privacy and their confidentiality. Somebody comes on this campus and waves a badge and says, I'm so-and-so, well, we're happy for you, but we're not going to do anything unless you have a warrant. So we've instructed our staff here about that. We're going to send out a reminder about that because it can be very intimidating for when individuals come onto our campus and with authority and those kinds of things. So we're going to make sure our employees here still understand that absent a warrant, we don't do anything. Period. And thank you. Daniel Diaz, want to invite him up to, he's got an event coming up that I thought would be of interest to folks.
Thank you, Dr. Long, for the long intro. Congressman, I just want to thank you again for the hard work and for updating us on what's happening up in the Hill. Like you said, politics are complex, but we got to keep fighting. We got to keep moving on with our lives, and that's the best thing we can do. A little bit quick plug-in, not taking too much of your time. My name is Daniel. I created Faces of DACA.us. It's a storytelling project capturing some of the stories from dreamers and DACA recipients. And collectively, we want to be part of the bill that's constantly pushing Congress to come up with what hopefully will be a long-term immigration reform. We received some coverage by NPR. Our story is being played nationwide. We have a podcast coming up soon that I just interviewed the editor-in-chief from 538. If you're not familiar with them, they make the presidential predictions of who's going to win. So we're just trying to get these stories out, and we actually have a community event coming up on February 6th that I want to invite everyone in the room here at the National Steinbeck Center, formerly National Steinbeck Center. February 6th, 6 to 8. You can find more information at facebook.com/facesofdaca, and we would like to welcome you to come be a part of our event and our celebration of the website. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Daniel, I greatly appreciate what you did. Obviously, as I mentioned, parts of this country, they don't understand. They don't see the faces. And so having a product like yours, which people are able to easily access and able to easily hear that story, makes our job easier back in Washington, D.C. So thank you very much.
Hello. My question is, what happens if there is no deal by the end of March if Congress can't come up with a solution?
That's an understandable question. I think what we're seeing here is obviously the sense of urgency starting to fill Capitol Hill, which is a good thing. As you can see, obviously government shutdowns are not good. We don't want those. Okay, I did not want that. But in regards to what came out of it, what arose out of it, was the fact that there is a heightened sense of urgency as to what we need to do in Washington, D.C. to have a DACA solution. I also believe that you saw bipartisanship come out of that. In order to get the agreement that the Senate did on Monday, you saw 25 senators, Democrats and Republicans, come together on that. You saw the Gang of Six come together on the Graham-Durbin bill. Like I said, it's something I'm not proud of, that it takes events like this for Congress to actually come together in a bipartisan fashion to do its job. But this is where we're at right now, and I think there is a good foundation that has been laid with the stories that I can tell about what I'm hearing today, as well as the information that's been out there, and members, Democrats and Republicans coming together, that hopefully there is a solution by February 8th is what we're hoping for. If there's none by March 8th, I can't tell you what will happen, but I do know that if there is not a solution by March 8th, then it's all of our job to hold our politicians accountable for that. That's what needs to be done. Hold them accountable by going to the booth and voting appropriately.
This is happening. How can we do that? And then my second question is, have you thought about other youth that is not included under DACA, and will they be also included into the new deal?
Let me start with the last question first. There is definitely, and if you look at the DREAM Act, if you look at the Graham-Durbin legislation, it does take into account those young men and women who have not qualified for DACA. It doesn't just take into account the 700,000 to 800,000 DACA recipients. It takes into account the young men and women who have come here and there are some who haven't applied for DACA. So that is accounted for in the proposed legislation that we are seeing in Washington, D.C., be it the DREAM Act, be it the Graham-Durbin bill as well. So trust me, those are in consideration. They're actually in potential legislation. And that is what I'm fighting for, that number as well. I think, in regards to your first question, I think what we've seen ever since January 21st to January 20th, 2017, you've seen some grassroots momentum that has basically become organized in a way that it makes it easy for people in California, easy for people here in Salinas to reach out to other parts of our state and other parts of our nation to get involved. And so, it's easy to go online. It's easy to contribute. It's easy to get organized, not just here on the Central Coast, but throughout our nation, and to be a part of those efforts throughout our nation. It just takes some looking online, basically some research by you to do that. But I agree with you. People have asked me all the time, what can I do? What can I do? And I say, well, we're fortunate here in this area. But there are other areas that need help. And so make sure that those people in those other areas understand what it takes to hold their politicians accountable for doing the right thing.
Part of reaching out to your counterparts, for example, is what Hartnell is doing here. Cabrillo is here, CSUMB is here. So not just the administration of the school can reach out to their counterparts, but you as students can reach out to a school in Bakersfield, for example, or another school in another state where we know that maybe there is not that Republican support. So I think that's a piece of it, and just sharing your story, like the gentleman who spoke before you. A big part of this is just sharing the story, because the majority of people, when they know what DACA is and when they speak to somebody who has had DACA or who never had the opportunity to get DACA, their minds are changed. I'm amazed every day as an attorney when the clients come into my office thinking that it's so easy to just get citizenship. Oh, I just want to apply for my wife for her citizenship, but it's not that easy. So I think spreading that knowledge and communicating in a bigger way than what is already happening is the way to change that narrative and to make it easier for people to accept a change. We need a change, not just for DACA, we need a change in our immigration laws.
Time for one final question. Any other burning questions? Well, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our esteemed speakers today. A round of applause. Thank you so much for all this important information. And I also want to take advantage of this opportunity to announce that Mi Casa will be supporting students with accessing all of the services that were described here today. So if you have any questions or don't know where to begin, please come and see us. And as we mentioned, we work very closely with our community partners in the United Farm Worker Foundation and Catholic Charities, as well as with our attorney and our local congressman's office. And we will be collaboratively hosting a free DACA renewal clinic on February 2nd from 6 to 9 p.m. So if you know anybody in the community who thinks that we're DACA recipients or are DACA recipients, please help us spread the word. This is open to the community. Thank you very much.